life of Firelord Ozai. Ozai was the ruler of the Fire Nation during the final years of the 100-Year War, reigning as Firelord from 95 to 100 AG. He was the second son of Firelord Azulon and Ilah, the younger brother of Iroh, uncle of Lu Ten, husband to Ursa, the father of Prince Zuko and Princess Azula, and the paternal grandfather of Izumi. Ozai was a firebending master, and prior to the end of the war was believed to be the most powerful firebender in the world. After Iroh's only son Lu Ten died, Ozai usurped his brother's birthright to the throne in a scheme that resulted in his father's death and Ursa's banishment. Ozai's rule saw a mass buildup of industry and significant technological advancements. Like his father and grandfather before him, Ozai sought to conquer the other nations and become the supreme ruler of the world. To do this, he planned to utilize Sozin's Comet to burn down the Earth Kingdom, renouncing the title of Firelord and declaring himself the Phoenix King, ruler of the world. Before his plans could come to fruition, he was defeated by Avatar Aang, who used energybending to remove his firebending abilities permanently. After the end of the war and Zuko's crowning, Ozai was sentenced to life in prison for several war crimes. However, he was able to maintain a degree of influence on world politics through some of his loyal followers creating the new Ozai Society and his son, who occasionally sought advice from Ozai. As a result, the former Firelord was indirectly responsible for the failure of the Harmony Restoration movement. Welcome to the Amagi. In today's video, we're going over the life of Firelord Ozai. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Early life. Ozai was born around 55 AG to Firelord Azulon and his wife Ilah, and according to his older brother Iroh, he displayed a difficult temperament from the moment he could crawl. When Ozai was a baby, a portrait was painted of him while playing on the beach. As he grew up, he became increasingly stubborn, impatient, and ambitious. As a result, Ozai's relationship with Iroh was always rather strained, and the two were highly competitive, regularly fighting over the pettiest matters such as a game of pai sho. Regardless, many dismissed Ozai's aggression as simple temper tantrums by an emotional youth. His behavior and later views on family were influenced by the fact that Azulon favored Iroh over him. Ozai's ruthlessness and ambition greatly helped him in school, however, and this impressed his older brother, resulting in a short-lived rapprochement. When Iroh later realized that Ozai's temperament stemmed from a deep-seated lack of empathy and brutal ambition, he distanced himself from his younger brother once again. At some point, Ozai, like his father and grandfather before him, attempted to find and capture the Avatar, but failed as they all did. Unlike his grandfather, father, and brother, Ozai was never a general, so he had not known great military accomplishments aside from being the leader of the Fire Nation later in his life. Eventually, Ozai and his father sought to add Avatar Roku's lineage to the royal family, as the Fire Sages predicted that doing so would yield a more powerful bloodline. The two traveled to Hira and tracked down Ursa, the granddaughter of the past Avatar. After a short introduction by his father, Ozai proposed to Ursa and she agreed. However, when they prepared to travel back to the capital city, a commoner blocked their way, demanding to release Ursa. Azulon ordered their bodyguards to deal with him, but after a short struggle, Ursa pleaded with Ozai to call off his soldiers' attack, securing the man's safety, and let her talk to the man to get him to go home. After being called "my love" by his future wife, the prince complied to the request. After the man was told off, the group continued their journey back to the capital. When Ozai was 30, he married Ursa, and during the following banquet, the prince told his wife about her new duties. Much to her shock, he explained that she had to sever all ties to her past life in accordance with the old traditions, including family and friends, in order to completely devote herself to her new duties and the royal family. Ozai happily kissed Ursa, saying that she now belonged to him. After their wedding, they had 2 children together, Zuko and Azula. However, when Zuko was born, his parents were not sure if he was a firebender, as he lacked that spark in his eyes. Considering what a shame it would be for the Prince of the Fire Nation to have a non-bender as his firstborn, Ozai planned to cast his infant son from the palace. However, Ursa and the Fire Sages pleaded with Ozai to give Zuko a chance, and the prince eventually gave in. The young family made frequent vacations to Ember Island in order to relax. On a vacation around 87 AG, Zuko nearly drowned in an attempt to help a turtle crab. When the tides were pulling his son further into the sea, Ozai dove in the water and rescued Zuko, who spent the remainder of the day in the care of his mother, recovering from the experience. Deteriorating relationship with Ursa. Aware of his wife's longing for her previous life, he had ordered her servant, Ilah, to file away all the letters Ursa secretly attempted to have someone smuggle outside the palace. However, one day when he was training, the elderly woman came to him with a letter that she felt needed the prince's attention. After he read it, he yelled out the impossibility of the secret the writing contained and crumpled the letter in his hand. Consumed by the information he had learned from Ursa's letter, he grew even more bitter toward his wife and his oldest child. He called a Yuyan archer Vachir to the palace and ordered him to travel to Hira in order to kill Ikem, Ursa's former boyfriend. Months later, during a family dinner, Ozai listened to Azula's animated recollection of how she showed up her firebending teacher, Master Kunio, much to the latter's displeasure. He sided with his daughter when she posed that Kunio was wrong about how one creates the biggest fire blast, noting that he would send the firebending teacher to the colonies. When Zuko tried to speak in Kunio's defense, however, Ozai snapped at his son, telling him he had no right lecturing Azula about firebending, considering that even though she was a year younger, she was already more advanced in the bending art. Ozai went on, telling him that he was not even sure that Zuko had been a bender at first, and that he had been lucky his mother and the Fire Sages had come to his rescue, as he had been planning to cast him over the palace wall for being a non-bending disgrace to him. He finished by telling Zuko that Azula never had needed that kind of luck, and that he had been lucky to be born. At that moment, a palace servant alerted Ozai to the return of Vachir, and Ozai promptly left the room. Ozai met Vachir on the palace balconies and listened to the Yuyan archer's recollection of his adventures. The prince was informed that Vachir had failed to track down Ikem, as the man had disappeared in the Forgetful Valley, where he was assumed to have perished on his own. Ozai, however, was not satisfied with this, deeming it all to be conjecture. He dismissed the archer, commanding him to resign from the Yuyan archers, as his failure made him unsuitable to be part of the elite fighting group. Afterward, Ozai went down to Ursa's quarters and confronted her about the letters she had sent Ikem, reminding her that she was supposed to forget her old life and that any communication with her past life was treasonous. Even though he deemed Zuko to be evidence of her treacherous act, he stated he would not kill the boy, proclaiming himself to be merciful. He took pleasure in informing his wife that he had sent an assassin after Ikem and that he had been successful, breaking her heart. When Ursa told Ozai that Zuko was indeed their son, Ozai replied that he had already known that, as he had sent spies to keep an eye on Ursa months before their wedding, but was angry as to why she would write such an obvious lie. When Ursa replied that she wished for Zuko not to turn out like Ozai, the prince said he would be sure to treat their son like that of a treacherous dog, and that every time he would wound Zuko with harsh words, he would be fulfilling his mother's wish. Coronation. About 8 years before Avatar Aang was found in the iceberg, Ozai's older brother Iroh began the 600-day siege of Ba Sing Se, the Earth Kingdom capital, which ended when Iroh's only son, Lu Ten, died in battle. This led Ozai to request that his father, Firelord Azulon, revoke Iroh's birthright as crown prince, allowing Ozai to inherit the throne instead of Iroh. Ozai explained that without an heir, the line of Firelords would end with Iroh, while Ozai still had 2 children. Azulon became furious, refusing to betray his firstborn son's right to the throne. As punishment, Azulon ordered Ozai to kill his own son Zuko, so that he would understand Iroh's pain. Ozai retreated to his own chambers to wait for Zuko to fall asleep. Having learned of the order from the eavesdropping Azula, Ursa pleaded with him to spare Zuko's life, but Ozai countered that he had no choice, since it would be treason to refuse the Firelord's command. As a last resort to save Zuko, Ursa offered Ozai what he desired most in exchange for Zuko's life: the throne. She would concoct an untraceable, colorless, and odorless poison and turn it over to Ozai to do whatever he wished. Ozai agreed to this on the condition that his wife would leave the palace, believing he too might be poisoned one day. Ursa tried to take Zuko and Azula with her, but Ozai assured her they would be safe in his hands as long as she kept her word, and threatened to hunt them all down if she tried taking their children. Shortly thereafter, Ursa made the poison and turned it over to him, and he snuck into Azulon's room that same night to end his father's life with it. The next morning, Azulon was found dead in his bed. His cremation took place a little later, and while Ozai and his 2 children were present, the Fire Sages announced Azulon's alleged dying wish that Ozai would be his successor. The High Sage subsequently crowned the former Prince Firelord, whereupon those present hailed him as their new ruler and bowed to him. 2 years prior to Aang's discovery at the South Pole, 13-year-old Zuko, his eldest and least favored child, spoke out in Ozai's war room against a general's plan to sacrifice novice troops in pursuit of victory. Angered by his impudence, Ozai demanded Zuko to duel in an Agni Kai, not with the general whom Zuko had disrespected, but with Ozai himself. Seeing the Firelord in the arena, Zuko fell to his knees, pleading for forgiveness and refusing to duel his own father. Ozai demanded that the young prince rise and fight for his honor, but Zuko refused to do so. For his perceived cowardice and disrespect, Ozai badly burned the left side of Zuko's face, permanently scarring him. He subsequently exiled Zuko from the Fire Nation under orders not to return until he had done the impossible: capture the long-lost Avatar who had been missing for nearly 100 years. This was meant to be an easy way of getting rid of Zuko, as all previous Firelords failed to find the Avatar. With the Avatar's sudden reappearance as the 12-year-old airbender Aang, Ozai became more aggressive in his pursuit of victory. Distrusting his son's competence, he promoted Zuko's rival Zhao from commander to admiral to increase his chances of capturing the Avatar. Admiral Zhao was thwarted in his mission by Ozai's brother Iroh, who committed treason in an effort to stop Zhao from killing the Water Tribe's patron Moon Spirit. Ozai expressed distaste at what he saw as his brother's treachery and his son's failure by giving his daughter Azula the task of capturing both Zuko and Iroh. After the successful coup of Ba Sing Se, Ozai had almost successfully taken control of the world. Eventually, he spoke with his son Zuko, who had regained his honor by supposedly killing the Avatar and helping Azula to conquer Ba Sing Se. This was the first and only time when Ozai felt proud of his son. Drastic measures. In a war meeting with his generals the day before the eclipse, Ozai learned from Zuko that even though the Earth Kingdom had been officially conquered, its citizens would not accept defeat as long as they had hope. Following Azula's recommendation, Ozai concluded that the only way to end Earth Kingdom resistance was to use the power of Sozin's Comet to completely burn it to the ground, as had been done with the air nomads 100 years before. During the eclipse on the Day of Black Sun, Ozai evacuated the capital city in preparation for the invasion and hid in a heavily guarded underground bunker. Zuko showed up and demanded permission to speak to his father. Ozai granted his request, amused that Zuko chose the eclipse to confront him. Zuko revealed that Azula shot down the Avatar, and she claimed that he did it because the Avatar was in fact still alive. Ozai was infuriated and attempted to attack Zuko, but stopped when Zuko pulled out his dual Dao swords against his father's disabled firebending. Zuko told him that he was done trying to earn his love, knowing that the very man who banished him and scarred him was not worthy of his love. Ozai said that it was to teach him respect, but Zuko denied this, saying it was cruel and wrong. Having had to learn everything on his own, Zuko now realized that the Fire Nation was unfit to rule the world and needed to return to harmony with the other nations. Ozai laughed at this declaration, remarking that Iroh had gotten through to him. Zuko went on to say that he would free his uncle from jail and help the Avatar defeat Ozai, prompting him to declare Zuko a full-blown traitor. Zuko refused to fight Ozai because he knew that fighting the Firelord was the Avatar's destiny, not his. Ozai, however, distracted Zuko by offering to tell him what really happened to his mother. Ozai revealed to Zuko that his father, Firelord Azulon, had indeed commanded Ozai to kill him, and that he would have done it had Zuko's mother not found out and intervened. She had proposed a plan to have Ozai spare Zuko's life by giving the throne over to Ozai through Azulon's downfall. However, Ursa committed vicious, treasonous things that night and was not killed but banished as a result, making Zuko realize that she may still be alive. Ozai decided that banishment was far too merciful a penalty for treason, and sensing the eclipse outside had ended, tried to kill Zuko with a powerful display of lightning generation. However, he was not aware that Iroh had taught Zuko his ability to redirect lightning, which Zuko used to send the bolt right back at Ozai, slamming him against the wall and leaving him to seethe in anger as Zuko fled the Fire Nation to join the Avatar. Phoenix King. When Sozin's Comet arrived, Ozai crowned himself Phoenix King, ruler of the world, and left Azula as his successor as Firelord. He later departed with his fleet of Fire Nation airships for the Earth Kingdom to carry out his plans. When he reached the Earth Kingdom, he began his attack but was quickly repelled by Avatar Aang, who destroyed his airship. Battle at Wulong Forest. Ozai prepared to battle with the Avatar for control of the world, declaring that the universe had delivered Aang to him as an act of providence, while his father, grandfather, and son had all failed to capture the Avatar. Aang asked Ozai to stop the 100-Year War, but instead, Ozai began his attack. For much of the battle, Ozai had an advantage due to the power of Sozin's Comet enhancing his already powerful firebending. Aang was at a great disadvantage due to his unwillingness to harm or kill the Firelord. Eventually, Ozai overwhelmed and cornered Aang, whom he proceeded to mock for having such a peaceful nature and for being the last of his race. Determined to finish off the Avatar, Ozai accidentally unblocked Aang's 7th and final chakra, prompting him to enter the Avatar state. While in this state, Aang easily gained the upper hand. Using a combination of all 4 bending arts, Aang went on the offensive. Though he tried to defend himself, Ozai quickly realized he no longer had the upper hand and was forced into a fighting retreat. Eventually, Aang caught up with him and pinned him down before preparing to deliver the final blow. Before it could be delivered, Aang regained control and voluntarily left the Avatar state, still not willing to kill Ozai to win. Instead, Aang used an ancient type of bending power, energy bending, to strip Ozai of his firebending forever, ending the fight peacefully without any casualties. Sokka, Toph, and Suki later arrived and taunted Ozai, powerless and weary from Aang's new ability, calling him the Loser Lord, Phoenix King of getting his butt whooped, and King of the guys who don't win, respectively. Imprisoned. With the war over and Zuko crowned the new Firelord, Ozai was transported to the capital city prison located near the royal palace, where Iroh was once held. Zuko later visited him, saying that his banishment set him on the right path, and that Ozai could use his time in prison to reflect on his actions, let go of his pride, and allow remorse to show him the path that Zuko spoke of. Firelord Zuko promptly demanded that Ozai state Ursa's whereabouts, but he did not answer this question. Instead, he taunted Zuko about the stresses a Firelord could face while in office, and he expected Zuko to return soon to seek his help. Following his imprisonment, most of Ozai's loyalists were removed from their offices by Zuko, minimizing his influence within the nation. However, some revisionists actively sought to reinstate Ozai as Firelord, including the new Ozai Society, though ultimately these attempts failed. A year after the 100-Year War, Ozai's prediction proved correct, as Zuko returned to him seeking advice on how to rule the Fire Nation and still be able to sleep peacefully. Enjoying the fact that his son came groveling back to him, Ozai told a story about Zuko's early childhood, where his son's indecisiveness over which animal he would save, a turtle crab from being eaten or a hawk from starvation, caused him to get into trouble when a wave washed him out to sea. When Zuko did not understand why his father told him the story, Ozai simply dismissed the Firelord and ordered him to come back the next day with more tea. When Zuko returned with more tea, Ozai explained to him that the lesson to be learned from the memory was that there was no right or wrong in the world, as whatever the Firelord decided to do was right by definition. When Zuko refused to see this and was set on going through with the peace talks with the Earth King, Ozai predicted that they would fail, as the previously weak Earth King would be set on showing the world that he could be a strong and decisive ruler by leading his armies to the gates of Yudao. Zuko rejected Ozai's predictions again, which led the former firebender to the conclusion that Zuko trusted the Avatar more than he trusted himself. Sickened by this display of weakness from his own son, he demanded that Zuko leave his presence. After the solution of the Yudao crisis and the collapse of the Harmony Restoration movement, Zuko again began his pursuit of information about Ursa's whereabouts. Because of Ozai's uncooperative behavior in this regard, Zuko requested help from his sister. Subsequently, Azula was placed in adjoining cells with her father, though they did not speak with each other for half an hour. When Zuko noticed that, he came to bring them tea in an attempt to make the situation more enjoyable. Azula grabbed hold of the tray with her teeth, however, and subsequently made Zuko fall over. This scene caused Ozai to grin satisfied, but nevertheless, he remained silent. After a short struggle, Azula told her brother that she wanted her and their father to have a dignified conversation in private. To Ozai's surprise, Zuko gave in to this request. During their following conversation, Ozai told his daughter of his past with Ursa and her letters from Ikem, information that could serve as an opportunity for Azula to take the throne from Zuko. Ozai was later visited by Ursa in his prison during the latter's visit to the Fire Nation capital. Having heard of her arrival, Ozai confidently assured her that she was making a mistake by returning to the capital. Raising his voice in anger, he vowed to hurt her and everyone she loved. His threat left her unfazed, however, as she simply retorted that she could finally truly see him. While he tried to be big, he had a small heart and no room for love for anyone, including himself. Taken aback at her words, Ozai sputtered as she turned and walked away, demanding to her back that she turn around and grovel before him, but Ursa ignored him as she left the outer cell. Legacy. As it had contributed to the end of the Harmony Restoration movement, Ozai's advice to Zuko also indirectly contributed to the formation of the United Republic of Nations. Zuko ultimately was able to steer the Fire Nation away from Ozai's style of rule and worldview. By 124 AG, it was more widely known that Ozai had poisoned his father Azulon. Did you enjoy our video? Be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.